On this short video, I want to discuss a little bit the Haftora for this weekly reading, for this Parsha. The Haftora that most of the congregations read is taken from Prophet Ezekiel. And there, the Pharaoh of Egypt is compared to a big crocodile, tanin, sitting in his river and saying that the river belongs to him and he made himself. Very interesting, sort of satirical analogy. There is an interpretation actually that Pharaoh somehow, the actual power of Egyptians, according to their belief, stemmed from some idol that was related to crocodile. Of course, the ancients used to relate everything, whether it's animals on this earth and whether it's stars in heaven, and everything was related to some kind of idolatry. So, in particular, of course, the river of Egyptians, the Nile, from which all their sustenance comes from, Egypt is practically the driest place on earth in terms of the rain. There's no rain there at all, almost. So the only sustenance, the only water, the most basic thing that people need in order to have the food, the crops, is based on Nile. And Nile, of course, became their god. Obviously, people worshipped whatever they got their sustenance from. So Nile was a god. Crocodile apparently was, or some kind of form that's similar to crocodile. Crocodile head was a form of their deity. And Pharaoh himself also made himself into a deity. So the prophet is comparing the Pharaoh of Egypt to a huge crocodile sitting in the river, saying that the river is his. And he is actually made himself, kind of. You couldn't translate these words. I made myself. So it's a prophecy against Egypt. Of course, Egypt later suffered quite a bit. This was the times of the end of First Temple when Ezekiel prophesied, and later on Babylonia conquered Egypt. But whatever the case may be, Egypt suffered quite a bit throughout history, and this was, of course, this Haftora, the parallel here is quite clear why it was chosen for this week's Parsha. Not every Parsha, as I mentioned in a different lesson, the Haftora is so obviously chosen. In some cases, for instance, the last Parsha that we read, Parshat Shemot, first of all, there is a difference between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim, which Haftorah to read. And secondly, both Haftorahs are not very clearly related. I mean, the Sephardi one is actually somewhat more related. It's talking about how Hashem chose Yirmiyahu, and it's somewhat similar to the way that Hashem chose Moshe. Both became the prophets and the messengers to the Jewish people against their choice. Both were hesitant. But this Haftorah is very clear. The Haftorah on the Parsha where the Torah talks about various punishments of Egypt and of Pharaoh, who deemed himself to be a god. Therefore, the Haftorah is how Egypt will be punished later on also against the huge crocodile Egyptian king. Now, we know that the sign that Moshe was told by Hashem to perform, it was really Aaron who did the sign, was to make a stick into a tanin. Now, it's interesting. The first time when Moshe was at Har Sinai, he dropped his stick and it became a nachash. Nachash is a snake. But tanin is usually translated as crocodile. The truth is, it's not so obvious. It could be it's all the same sign. It could be that whatever Aaron did before Pharaoh is the same exact sign as Moshe was given originally. The tanin and nachash is the same thing. But this is not a majority opinion. Many commentators say that there was a difference. And quite possibly, the difference had to do with what we just described. That to Pharaoh specifically, the sign was a crocodile, because Pharaoh himself is compared to crocodile, and because of their belief of where their powers came from. Now, of course, the ancient Egyptians had all kinds of beliefs that today we don't know too well. If we knew them better, we would probably understand better what the 10 plagues were. The 10 plagues are not just a random collection of some kind of punishments. They had to do with changing the belief system and explaining to the Egyptians the hard way that what they believed in is vanity. So a lot of these plagues have to do with their beliefs. The more the scientists find out about the ancient beliefs of the Egyptians, the better we understand the system of the 10 plagues. But whatever the case may be, it could be that that's the reason why the sign that was shown to Pharaoh was a stick that turned to crocodile, not to a snake. As opposed to Moshe, the reason that his stick was turned, his staff was turned to a snake, our sages explain is because of what he said before, that the Jewish people won't believe me. It was given to him as a sign for the Jewish people originally. And he was told that if the Jewish people don't believe you, you'll give them the sign with a stick that turns into a snake, and also with a hand that can become, can get sarat, mitzorah, which is usually translated as leprosy, which probably it's not. It's some kind of other disease. But it's some kind of a skin disease that makes the hand white. And there was a third sign that you'll take some water and make it into blood. So all of these signs were given because Moshe doubted that the Jewish people will believe him. And our sages explain that actually Moshe was wrong here. The Jewish people will believe. So Hashem told him these signs that actually hint to a kind of lashon hara, bad mouthing. That the fact that Moshe doubted that the Jewish people will believe him, he said immediately, they're not going to believe me. This was not the right thing to say. A prophet is supposed to try to protect and try to learn zechut, as they call, learn good things about the Jewish people rather than saying that they won't believe me. So therefore Hashem told him that it's actually you who are going to later not have enough belief, right? In the episode of the water, when Moshe, whatever he did wrong, there was also a lot of different opinions what went wrong over there, but whatever is described in the Torah, in Parshat Chukat, when Moshe, it says, did not believe enough, right? Hashem tells him that you're not going to believe enough, but the Jewish people are going to believe. So therefore the signs had to do with hints to lashon hara. Snake, of course, is the sign of lashon hara, the original snake that enticed Chava. Then tzarat is a sign of lashon hara, as we learn from the story of Miriam, and water turning to blood also apparently. But the signs that Aaron had to do before Pharaoh, that's a different story altogether. It doesn't have to be the same signs. We don't find anything with the hand turning white, of course, and the stick here apparently turned to a different animal, to a crocodile. And also with the water, it's not really the same sign. The sign that was that all water in Egypt will turn into blood, as opposed to the original sign for the Jewish people would probably be just some water. By the way, with regards to this first sign given to Pharaoh, it says that we usually count the 10 plagues starting with the next one, only when the water turned to blood. And therefore there's only 10 plagues. But Shaddai brings an interesting idea that, in the name of a different commentator, that you may actually count 12 plagues. How is that going to count? By plagues, I mean 10 plagues and signs. 12 plagues and signs, 12 different things that will happen. And that is, if you count the original, the first sign with the stick turning to this crocodile or the dragon of sorts, and also you count whatever happened before the sea, at the sea, so then you're adding 2, so it's going to be 12. And then there's a system of 3 times 4. Then everything is even more symmetric. Usually we divide, based on Rabbi Yehuda's teachings, we divide all the signs, all the plagues, into 3, 3, and 4. But if you count 12, then you have 4 times 3 signs. Groups of 3 start then always without a warning, right? Then everything is shifted by 1, so it's always the first sign is without a warning. The first was the stick turning to the crocodile, and then 2 greater punishments that came with a warning: the blood and the tzefardea, and then again 3, first without the warning, then 2 with the warning, then again 3, and then again 3. So it's always the latter would be worse in a certain sense. So in the last 3, it would be then choshech, darkness without the warning, then makat bechorot, the Egyptian firstborn that died, and then at last the sea, which destroyed the entire Egyptian army. And on this I'll end for today. I hope I gave enough interesting and new ideas. Hopefully even people who know quite a bit heard at least something they don't know yet. And if you like this video, please press like, and please subscribe to our channel.